In the 21st century, human beings exhibit a profoundly irrational, resource-heavy compulsion regarding deceased biological matter. We pump spent biology full of toxic chemicals to mimic the flush of life. We place them in polished boxes of rare woods and metals, and we bury them in perfectly manicured, expensive fields. We stand quietly before these coordinates, speaking to calcium and decomposing tissue as if consciousness still clings to the bones. It brings a visceral discomfort, a strange nausea, and the eerie sensation of the uncanny valley. Biologically and economically, the modern funeral is absurd. A corpse is, from a strictly biological standpoint, spent carbon. Dedicating massive amounts of calories, land, and emotional bandwidth to decaying matter provides absolutely zero immediate survival utility. In nature, animals generally leave their dead behind or consume them to recycle calories. Humans are uniquely obsessed. We hoard our dead in specialized fields and anchor ourselves to grief. In a world where predators and plagues are managed by infrastructure, burying the dead is a massive evolutionary glitch. But this modern glitch was once a desperate, life-saving superpower. To understand why we will bankrupt ourselves to fund a funeral, we have to strip away modern spiritualism. We must look at the brutal logistics of the Pleistocene epoch. Roughly 300,000 years ago, hominins began living in more permanent rock shelters and deep cave systems. This created a terrifying new environmental bottleneck. What exactly do you do when a 150-pound member of your tribe dies right in the middle of your living room? A decomposing hominin body on the ancient savanna, or inside a closed cave, was essentially a ticking biological bomb. The moment life ends, the body begins a rapid transformation. It releases putrescine and cadaverine, which are volatile organic compounds that signal the proliferation of dangerous necrobacterial pathogens. Our ancestors did not possess microscopes, but their bodies understood the threat. The intense revulsion we feel near a corpse evolved strictly as a behavioral immune system to prevent us from touching contagious, decaying tissue. But worse than the invisible threat of disease was the immediate, terrifying threat of teeth. The sweet, suffocating scent of decay carries for miles on the wind. A corpse left in or near a sleeping site served as a homing beacon. It would inevitably attract apex scavengers. Giant cave hyenas, dire wolves, saber-toothed cats, and short-faced bears would catch the scent. Leaving a body exposed meant inviting these massive predators directly into the center of the tribe. Imagine the damp, bone-deep chill of an upper Paleolithic night. The fire is dying down to glowing embers inside a small rock shelter. A tribal elder has just succumbed to a festering infection. Within hours, the body begins to change. The eyes flatten, the skin takes on a pale, waxy rigidity. By day 2, the visceral reality of decomposition fully sets in. The cave fills with the sharp, sickening odour of cadaverine. This is not a quiet moment of spiritual reflection. It is a moment of primal, heart-pounding terror. At the dark edge of the firelight, the tribe can hear the high-pitched whooping calls of giant cave hyenas, drawn by the scent of the rotting elder. Every single hour the body remains above ground, the entire tribe is at risk of being slaughtered in the dark. There is no time for mourning. There are no shovels. There are no excavators. To save the tribe, the surviving members must do the unthinkable. They must forcefully interact with the very thing their biological immune system is screaming at them to avoid. The survivors physically drag the dead weight, pulling limbs stiff with rigor mortis deep into the pitch-black recesses of the cave, or out into the frozen earth. They drop to their knees and dig. They use sharpened sticks, heavy antlers, and their bare hands. They rip their fingernails backward against the permafrost and limestone scree to create a shallow depression. They roll the body into the dirt and heave heavy stones over the chest and face. They do this to prevent the giant scavengers from digging it back up. In the flickering torchlight, the survivors look down at the dirt-covered mound. They have just expended thousands of precious calories. The tribe is exhausted, shivering, and deeply traumatized. Their brains, highly evolved for social connection, struggle to compute that this pile of rocks now contains their mother, brother, or chief. To reconcile the trauma, the grueling labour, and the broken social bond, the brain constructs a powerful narrative. They are not gone. They are just sleeping below the earth. We have protected them. The first funeral was born in the bloody soil of survival. The fossil record captures this haunting transition perfectly. In Spain, deep inside the Cima de los Huesos, or the Pit of Bones, archaeologists found the remains of 28 ancient hominins. Over 400,000 years ago, these bodies were intentionally dropped into a deep, nearly inaccessible shaft. Among the bones lay a single, symmetrical hand axe carved from red quartzite. It is the first known evidence of lethal sanitation mixing with the dawn of symbolic caching. Moving forward in the timeline, we see Neanderthals returning to the exact same spots to bury their dead over multiple generations. At the famous Shanidar cave in Iraq, recent excavations of grave cuts confirm this was purposeful, deliberate corpse management. It was intense physical labour designed to mask the scent of death. But an evolutionary trade-off was happening. By repeatedly engaging in the physical labour of caching and covering bodies, our ancestors developed a habitual, intimate interaction with the dead. Sanitation birthed symbolism. By 90,000 years ago, at Kafsa Cave in the Levant, early Homo sapiens had completely crossed the behavioural threshold. They were found buried with vivid red ochre and grave goods. The trade-off was complete. To protect our physical bodies from scavengers, we broke our minds. We traded immediate physical vulnerability for a permanent psychological burden. We invented the concept of the soul to justify the terrifying physical chore of hiding the dead. Burying the dead ceased to be about sanitation and became fully saturated with religious meaning. Anthropologists and psychologists study this transition through terror management theory. This framework proves that human awareness of our own inevitable death creates paralyzing existential terror. Cultural rituals, burials, and religions are evolutionary defense mechanisms. They are psychological shields designed to buffer this terror so we can continue to function, hunt, and reproduce. But for the human brain to properly process this terror, the physical ritual must be completed. The biological loop must be closed through action and exertion. This brings us to the profound friction of the modern world. Today, the clash between our ancient biological programming and our sanitized modern lifestyle creates severe psychological damage. For 300,000 years, the human brain processed the trauma of a death by engaging in visceral, tactile labour. Digging the earth, handling the heavy corpse, and physically burying the biohazard. This exhausting process forced the brain to accept the finality of the loss. But in the modern world, we have completely outsourced the dead. When someone dies today, they are whisked away by medical professionals. They are hidden behind hospital curtains, processed by morticians, and presented to us fully embalmed, painted, and resting on satin. We never touch the dirt. Because modern humans are denied the physical, primal act of hiding the body, our ancient neurobiology never receives the crucial sensory signal that the threat is resolved. The loop remains permanently open. We stare at a polished box, but our bodies do not understand what has actually happened. This open loop is a leading evolutionary theory behind the modern epidemic of prolonged grief disorder. Without the physical exhaustion and tactile reality of a primal burial, the brain's agency detection system remains stuck in overdrive. Deep in our subconscious, the mind is still waiting for the loved one to walk back through the door. It refuses to let go because we did not do the labour required to bury them. The biological toll of this unresolved grief is measured in chronic, unrelenting stress that degrades our health. This existential terror, unbuffered by the primal physical rituals our ancestors used to master it, leaves modern humans with lingering, free-floating death anxiety. This anxiety chronically elevates our cortisol levels. It silently degrades our immune systems. It drives frantic, consumerist behaviours as we subconsciously try to build a legacy in a world where we no longer dig graves with our own bleeding hands. We bankrupt ourselves on funerals, desperately trying to satisfy an ancient biological craving that modern society has sanitized out of existence. We stand in manicured cemeteries, staring at perfect, polished stone, feeling a profound and heavy emptiness we cannot name. We survived the cave hyenas and the ancient plagues, but the ghost of the first funeral haunts our biology to this day.